Welcome to clue number 4 of the Winter Mystery 2022. Before you start to cut, make sure you consult your fabric key so that you cut the correct fabric, and watch the entire video before you cut in case you want to use an alternate method to make the half square triangles. Here is the pattern for clue number 4. You can push pause and take notes to get the information you need. You can take a screenshot and print it from your phone, or you can join our group, The Quilted Forest Friends, on Facebook for access to PDF files to print at home. From the color 2 fabric, cut 2 strips that are 4 7/8 by the width of fabric. From those strips, cut 10 squares that are 4 7/8 by 4 7/8. Bisect each of those squares once for 20 triangles. I'm only showing 8 of the squares being cut in this video because I forgot to cut the other 2. So when you're cutting, make sure you cut 10 squares, 4 7/8 by 4 7/8, so you can bisect each of them once for 20 triangles. From the background fabric, cut 2 strips that are 4 7/8 by the width of fabric. From those strips, cut 10 squares that are 4 7/8 inch by 4 7/8 inch. Bisect each of those squares once to get 20 triangles. Again, I'm only showing 8 because I forgot to cut the other 2, so make sure you cut all 10 squares. Again, I'm only showing you 8 of the squares in the video because when I make the mistake once, I'm going to make it twice. So make sure you cut 10 squares, bisect each of them once to get 20 triangles. It's time to start sewing. Make sure you're piecing using 1/4 inch seam allowances. Before I start sewing, I like to get my pieces organized. Then I make sure I have my right sides together and I have a color 2 triangle with a light triangle, and I have enough of each cut. Being organized with my pieces will save me from getting the seam ripper out later on. Once I'm organized, I'm going to make sure that my corners match and I can send them through the machine. When you're sewing triangles using this method, you want to make sure that you don't pull on them at all. Just let them feed themselves through the machine and then they won't stretch. You are making 20 half square triangle units, so make sure you have all 20. Once you're done sewing all the pieces, get your blade saver thread cutter out and get them all cut apart. Now it's time to head over to the ironing board to press. Make sure you're pressing carefully and you're going to press toward the color 2 fabric. Now that the units are pressed, it is time to trim as needed. Most likely, you will only need to cut off the dog ears, although I like to use my block lock ruler, and that way if I do have a seam that was a little bit off, I am trimming it down to the correct size of 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches. You will end up with 20 half square triangle units. If you are not a fan of making half square triangle units using 2 triangles, there are literally dozens of ways to make half square triangle units, and you can use whatever method you prefer. The important thing to remember is that they need to measure 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches at this point, or 4-inch finished in the quilt. Some of the other methods for making half square triangles include triangles on a roll, thangles, a specialized ruler, or starting with squares that are oversized, about 5 inches by 5 inches, and then drawing a line on the back of one of the pieces and then sewing a 1/4 inch on either side, or using your diagonal seam tape. Once your blocks are done, you want to put them in a bag with a pattern and store them in the same place you've stored the first 3 clues. We hope that you will hit that like button, make a comment, share with your quilting friends, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.